People tend to place very high expectations on geniuses, and this expectation certainly applies to our protagonist. Observing him, a girl mentions to her friend that he is the genius of their entire college. She's heard rumors that he has mastered all the advanced spy techniques from various professions, and, judging by how good he looks today, she's certain he will switch to a powerful job class. Her friend agrees enthusiastically, stating without hesitation that someone of his caliber will definitely awaken into a strong job class. When that happens, she promises she will finally confess her feelings to him. Before continuing, it is important to understand the background of this world. 100 years ago, the Earth was invaded by the emergence of games, and with them came terrifying monsters of every kind. Humanity was forced into awakening latent skills to survive. The harsh fate they faced was clear. Switch to powerful job classes, fight these monsters, level up, or perish. Geniuses like our protagonist naturally attract the spotlight during these perilous times, as their extraordinary abilities often determine the fate of humanity. Today is the long-awaited day for job class transfers, and our protagonist is eager, knowing that the moment has finally arrived. His name is Jiang Li. He crossed into this world 18 years ago endowed with exceptional talent. Since then, he has dedicated himself tirelessly to training and acquiring a diverse set of skills, all with the singular ambition of becoming the strongest person alive. 4 job classes are considered suitable for him, each fitting his extraordinary skill sets: warrior, mage, assassin, and advanced combat. In each of these disciplines, he excels beyond others. Naturally, many expect a talent as remarkable as his to awaken a hidden job class, a rare and secret rank that reveals untold power. Jobs rank in 3 layers: basic, advanced, and hidden. The strength and difficulty of awakening these classes increase from basic to hidden. Hidden job classes are exceedingly rare, akin to finding a needle in a haystack, but those who awaken them achieve overwhelming strength. The principal of his school remarks that Jiang Li's potential is boundless. However, being outstanding always attracts jealousy and disdain from some peers. As Jiang Li makes his way to the awakening grounds, he is stopped by a group of bullying classmates. They mockingly call him the highly anticipated genius. Their leader, Yin Shu, who belongs to the Golden Domain Academy and is known as one of the 3 geniuses of the academy, looks down on Jiang Li. Yin Shu's father is a powerful golden class practitioner, making Yin Shu a figure of influence on campus. Despite this, Jiang Li is always one step ahead academically and in skill. Jiang Li prefers not to get involved with Yin Shu and simply tells him that he hasn't decided what to awaken yet before trying to walk past. But Yin Shu blocks his path and puts a hand on his shoulder, warning him not to be arrogant, or he might awaken a worthless job class. Laughing scornfully, Yin Shu tells Jiang Li not to complain when that happens, implying it would be his own fault. Angered, Jiang Li demands that Yin Shu remove his hand. When Yin Shu sees the fierce glow in Jiang Li's blue eyes directed at him, he feels intimidated and quickly withdraws. Jiang Li knows this day will mark him as the center of attention. If he fails his awakening, it will be a humiliating blow because geniuses who fail become the laughing stock of the school. The student awakening ceremony begins. The first to be called is Zhang Danu from Class 1. Unfortunately, he fails to awaken any job class and feels deeply disappointed. However, his teacher consoles him, saying that many students do not awaken high-tier professions at first and encourages him to persevere, emphasizing that everyone has potential. Next, a bright flash of light fills the grounds as the student, named Lai Muan, successfully awakens an advanced job class known as the Swift Archer. The crowd erupts in cheers, especially the students from the Golden Domain Academy, who celebrate their genius peer. Lai Muan smiles at Jiang Li appreciatively as he applauds her success. Then it's Yin Shu's turn. He successfully awakens an advanced job class as well, the Flame Mage. Though others are amazed at his achievement, Yin Shu appears disappointed that it is not a hidden class. Rumors start spreading that with 2 consecutive advanced class awakenings, The school has strong candidates, and even more powerful classes may be revealed soon. After Yin Shu steps down from the stage, he taunts Jiang Li again, sneering that Jiang Li's clownish efforts won't alter anything, saying talent is innate and cannot be earned. Jiang Li considers Yin Shu foolish and chooses to ignore him. Finally, Jiang Li is called forward. He strides onto the stage as the principals from various schools watch closely. An elder principal asks the Golden Domain Academy's principal if this is the Jiang Li with the highest grades in their school, noting how exceptional he truly appears. The Golden Domain principal silently watches without comment. As the awakening begins, Jiang Li's body radiates a brilliant blue light. A job class scroll and talent book emerge as part of the ritual. The blue light intensifies, creating a ripple of excitement among the audience and a hopeful stir among the principals, who momentarily believe he may awaken the rare hidden job class. But as the light fades, it reveals only a basic job class for Jiang Li. The elder principal expresses shock, questioning how the school's top student ended with such an ordinary class. Yin Shu bursts into laughter, loudly mocking Jiang Li's result, claiming his flame mage class is superior. The crowd turns against Jiang Li, labeling him a fake genius and praising Lime Yuan as the true prodigy. They ask Lime Yuan to take them under her wing, but she ignores them, only casting concerned looks at Jiang Li. Jiang Li silently remains on stage as whispers and ridicule fill the air. People mockingly point out that a top student like him only achieved a mage job class, shattering their high expectations. Some even remark on the principal's embarrassed expression. Jiang Li wonders quietly if this is all there is to his awakening. Suddenly, a bright screen flashes before his eyes. It's a system notification congratulating him for awakening a special talent. All his skills have automatically reached max level. He is both surprised and confused, having never heard of such a talent before. He wonders if it is connected to the peculiar circumstances surrounding his crossing into this world. Another window pops up, displaying his current skills: fireball spell, light armor spell, and meditation spell, but none of them appear maxed. Before he can react further, his system screen shines intensely. One by one, his 3 skill levels begin to rise rapidly. Watching in awe and slight fear, Jiang Li sees all of his skills progress swiftly to max level in front of his eyes. Jiang Li was taken aback, asking himself what was happening. He remembered his teacher Pewing explaining that after awakening, each practitioner's profession begins with 3 level 1 skills. As the practitioner levels up, these skills undergo a significant qualitative improvement in strength and effect. However, leveling up skills is an arduous process, and it's rare for anyone to max out all their skills at once. Jiang Li chuckled softly, thinking how surprisingly straightforward achieving max-level skills turn out to be. He smiled to himself, feeling that fate had not abandoned him after all. Having his skills automatically maxed out was even more incredible than awakening a hidden job class. Amid these thoughts swirling in his mind, Jiang Li was suddenly shaken by the principal. Opening his eyes, he saw the principal of Golden Domain Academy, encouraging him not to be disheartened. Though he hadn't awakened a hidden job class, being recognized as a practitioner was still a great achievement. The principal affirmed that Jiang Li's future was full of limitless possibilities, and all the teachers truly believed in him. With that encouragement and the rare talent of skills being automatically maxed, Jiang Li couldn't help but grin with confidence. He thanked the principal sincerely, promising to continue working hard. The principal patted him on the back and told him to stay positive and return to class. Observing this interaction, the principal thought to himself that Jiang Li was an exceptional and commendable student. But as Jiang Li stepped down from the stage, he faced laughter and scorn from the crowd. No one came to congratulate him, just as he'd expected. Harsh reality dictated that people preferred watching a genius fail rather than succeed. However, Jiang Li was determined to prove them all wrong. Later, at the trial shooting range, students practiced demonstrating their skills. Yin Shu was present, assessing his fire magic as he shot at a mannequin, reducing its outer layer to ashes. His underlings praised him, affirming that their boss was truly magnificent. While this was happening, Yanshu noticed Jiang Li approaching from behind and mocked him, calling him an ordinary mage. Jiang Li didn't respond, which angered Yanshu, causing him to attack with a burst of fire magic. "I'm telling you, you're just an ordinary mage," he shouted. Angered, Jiang Li turned to face him and asked what he wanted. Pointing at the mannequin, Yanshu said, "Come on, genius, show us your skills with some attitude." Jiang Li replied calmly that they could practice alone, that he didn't need to prove anything because he was already skilled. Annoyed, Yanshu and his followers grew angry. Yanshu told Jiang Li to stop talking nonsense and challenged him sarcastically. "Who said anything about practicing? I want to see you compete with an advanced flame mage like me." He even poked Jiang Li's forehead, calling him a wimp. That was the last straw. Jiang Li's anger flared, and he cast a fireball spell at the mannequin behind Yanshu. Yanshu laughed dismissively. "A basic fireball spell? You're serious." But when the fireball hit its target, a massive explosion occurred, one far beyond expectation. All the mannequins in the firing range were engulfed in flames and completely destroyed. Yanshu stared in shock, refusing to believe what he'd just seen. "This can't be happening," Yanshu muttered, turning to Jiang Li and demanding if he was really just a basic mage. Jiang Li didn't respond. With quiet resolve, he turned and walked away, his fireball's sheer power far exceeding expectations, even though it had nearly drained half his mana. When Jiang Li arrived home, his mind raced with thoughts about leveling up quickly and increasing his maximum mana. Upon entering, a familiar voice called out, questioning how he could come home without saying a word. It was his mother, Dan Chingu. She urged him to come inside and wash up quickly as dinner was ready. Seated at the dinner table, Jiang Li shared the news of his successful awakening as a mage. His mother beamed with joy, explaining that mages were valuable because they could attack from the back lines, safer than frontline fighters. She then stood to give him a special gift. A box, she said, left by his father who had once been a powerful professional. Jiang Li was shocked. He had always been told his father died before he was born. Confused and curious, Jiang Li questioned his mother about his father's whereabouts and why he had seemingly abandoned them. His mother tearfully explained that she didn't know either. His father claimed he was leaving for the edge of the world on urgent business and left in a hurry. Seeing Jiang Li's growing frustration, she implored him not to blame his father. His father had promised to help him become a mage, which was why she had always stressed the importance of his mage studies. She began crying, her words trailing off as she hoped that now that Jiang Li was a mage, his father might return. Then, she turned and went to her room, exhausted, telling him to rest or explore the box at his leisure. Staring at the box, Jiang Li felt something stirring inside him, a sense that this could change his fate. As he opened it, a golden light shone forth, revealing a job class scroll and a note. The note stated that using this scroll allowed one to change their profession to the powerful Arcanist class. The requirement? Being a mage with a profession strength of gold level or higher. Jiang Li was stunned. The scroll was a profession change scroll, a rare and special item allowing transformation to a special profession. He learned that professional ranks in this world range from iron, bronze, silver, gold, holy domain, to demigod. Professionals who reach certain ranks and meet requirements can break through to the next tier. His father, once a top professional, had only reached the gold level. That meant such a scroll was impossible for Jiang Li to have obtained on his own. Jiang Li realized he had been lied to. He did not know his father's true rank, whether holy domain or demigod. But if his father possessed such strength, why had there been no news for so many years? Jiang Li carefully placed the scroll back, realizing that for the time being, his priority was to find a way to level up and reach the gold-level professional rank. In 7 days, the trial for professionals in Jin City was scheduled to begin, and his batch would participate as well. It made sense to prepare thoroughly ahead of time. Some time later, at the hunting grounds, a red-haired hunter spotted Jiang Li and whispered to a blue-haired companion, mocking him as another reckless novice who's just awakened but clueless about the dangers of the world, rushing headlong toward death. The blue-haired hunter speculated that maybe Jiang Li possessed a powerful special profession, but the red-haired hunter snickered, pointing out how thin and frail Jiang Li looked. There was no way he was anything other than a mage. Both hunters burst into laughter, but Jiang Li paid them no mind and continued on his path. However, a girl hunter named Vivi noticed Jiang Li walking by and stopped him. She addressed him warmly as little brother, saying that from the aura she sensed, he must be a newly awakened student, and invited him to join their group. Her party members objected, arguing they had urgent matters and couldn't afford to carry such a burden. They believed it wasn't their problem if Jiang Li overestimated his limits. Vivi was upset by their attitude and questioned why they were so unkind. Jiang Li politely declined the offer, thanking Vivi for her kindness, but said he was fine on his own. Just as he attempted to leave, Vivi stopped him once more and handed him a bottle of potions. She explained that since he was a mage, the potions would surely be useful to him. Grateful, Jiang Li accepted the gift and headed straight for the hunting grounds. He entered the gray forest where a level 4 giant goblin was prowling. Jiang Li concealed himself behind a tree, waiting for the right moment. When the big goblin wasn't looking, Jiang Li suddenly cast his fireball spell and launched it at the creature. Although the goblin noticed the fireball, it was too late to evade. The resulting explosion engulfed the goblin in flames, killing it instantly. Looking at the charred corpse, Jiang Li remarked that his max-level fireball spell had effortlessly dispatched the level 4 goblin. Suddenly, sounds of footsteps caught his attention. He swiftly turned to see a group of ordinary goblins emerging from the bushes, attracted by the explosion's noise. Jiang Li backed away cautiously and began casting his light armor spell. As a shimmering shield enveloped him just in time, one goblin lunged forward to attack. The goblin's blows struck the glowing light armor, but failed to break through. Protected by the powerful shield, Jiang Li prepared to unleash another fireball. This time, he aimed the spell at the ground, triggering a massive explosion that sent the nearby goblins flying in all directions. Watching the destruction, Jiang Li commented that it was like using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. Up popped a system notification announcing that he had leveled up to level 2. Still, Jiang Li felt the experience gained was too small, considering how many monsters he had slain. More goblins appeared, and Jiang Li readied another fireball, confident that no matter how many came, the outcome would be the same. But this time, when he tried to cast the spell, nothing happened. He was unable to summon the fireball. Terrified, he quickly checked his stats and realized his mana was completely drained. Despite only casting 2 fireballs and 1 light armor spell, his mana pool was empty. Even though he had just leveled up and gained some mana, it was still insufficient. Fortunately, the light armor shield remained half intact, providing some defense. Jiang Li decided to meditate to restore his mana before continuing to fight. After finishing off the monsters, he picked up a sturdy stick, confident that goblins couldn't penetrate his defensive spells. Pointing at the goblins, he declared that he was going to play with them. When they approached, he charged and struck with all his might, intending to showcase the power of a melee mage. However, his strike only reduced the goblin's health by 10 points. As expected, the physical damage output of a melee mage was quite low. But Jiang Li remained undeterred, affirming to himself that 10 points per hit was enough, as he could continuously attack without fear of retaliation. He kept hitting, and eventually, all the goblins were defeated. By nightfall, Jiang Li sighed with relief, thinking that exhausting the enemies was the best strategy. Looking at his stats after leveling up to 3, Jiang Li realized that currently his offensive magic was limited to the fireball spell. With his current mana reserves, 2 fireballs were the maximum he could cast before having to replenish. During the cooldown of the fireball spell, he relied on the light armor spell for protection, but this approach was inefficient and slow. Suddenly, a loud noise emerged from the forest. Numerous red eyes glared at Jiang Li from the shadows. He immediately suspected what was coming, and he was right. A colossal monster stepped out, the level 10 elite giant axe goblin, towering multiple times over Jiang Li's size. Seeing the monster, Jiang Li thought, perfect timing. Defeating elite monsters early on will yield substantial experience. He cast his light armor spell with full confidence, but like before, nothing happened. No armor appeared. A quick glance at his stats revealed that his mana was still depleted. The giant axe goblin wasn't waiting, raising its massive weapon and swinging toward Jiang Li. He dodged, narrowly avoiding the axe's devastating strike which cleaved into the ground itself. The goblin grinned, clearly confident. Jiang Li understood one thing. This was going to be a tough battle. But as he focused on the giant goblin, a small goblin attacked him from behind. Realizing he had overlooked the smaller goblins, Jiang Li turned and saw them charging. He took off running, chased by both the giant axe goblin and the swift goblins. Thinking to himself that they were ganging up on him because he had no mana, Jiang Li tried to remain calm despite the pressure. He considered 3 possible tactics. First, to find a moment to meditate and replenish mana. But the goblins would never let him concentrate. They constantly harassed him by throwing rocks and attacking relentlessly. Second, to use the single potion Vivi had given him. However, judging by its ordinary quality, it could only restore less than a third of his mana, which was insufficient even for 1 fireball. The light armor spell would have to suffice for defense. Third and last, to retreat, recover mana, and return later to fight. But running away was not really in Jiang Li's style. Jiang Li turned back to face the giant axe goblin, aware that waiting for his mana to regenerate naturally would take around 24 hours. During that time, the elite monster could easily be claimed by someone else. Without hesitation, he uncorked the potion Vivi had given him and drank it. Instantly, his mana surged upward. The giant axe goblin raised its massive weapon to strike again, slamming the axe down exactly where Jiang Li had just stood. The impact demolished the ground, leaving a deep crater. Yet, the goblin was the one who got truly startled. At the last second, Jiang Li cast his light armor spell just in time to block the heavy blow. Glancing at his status window, Jiang Li wondered how much mana his max-level meditation could restore before his light armor finally shattered. This was a risky gamble, but Jiang Li decided to proceed. The goblin, seeing its attacks futile against the glowing armor, grew furious and began relentlessly assaulting the shield. Jiang Li ignored the goblin's fury, sitting down to meditate and recover mana. As his mana gradually replenished, the light armor started weakening under the continuous blows. Eventually, the goblin's full-strength strike shattered the nearly broken armor. By then, Jiang Li's mana was about halfway restored. He judged that it was enough to finish off the monster. The goblin, exhausted from breaking the shield, was left defenseless. Seizing the moment, Jiang Li unleashed a powerful fireball spell. The massive explosion sent the giant axe goblin flying, obliterating it along with the nearby, smaller goblins. A system notification appeared, congratulating Jiang Li for a critical hit. He had struck the monster's weak point, instantly killing the elite goblin. Though Jiang Li felt drained from the close call, he acknowledged how potent max-level meditation was for battling elite foes and groups of smaller monsters. His level jumped 4 times, elevating him to level 7, which surprised him greatly. Eagerly, he inspected the fallen giant goblin's remains. Among the loot were 2 pieces of black iron equipment, swift gloves, and finely crafted leather boots. But, given his current strength, beginner gear like this wouldn't make much difference. It was either kill the enemy in 1 hit or die. Plus, the equipment was ugly. Jiang Li resolved to keep them for selling later. Reflecting on his current mana pool, he realized he still couldn't cast a 3rd full fireball. Each time he gathered monsters, he risked running out of mana and putting himself in danger. He admitted to himself that this slow grind was inefficient compared to facing elite monsters. Jiang Li wished for a low-cost, wide-range attack spell. At that moment, he spotted a skill book lying on the ground behind him. His eyes brightened upon seeing it. This was a skill even novices could learn. Opening the book, he was shocked as immense lightning surged out, flooding his body with energy. The skill was arc lightning. Jiang Li recalled that arc lightning was an area of effect spell, level 10, with a casting time of just half a second and 0 mana cost. It could leap between multiple targets, with paralysis and damage scaling with the user's level. Max level upon learning, in his case. He chuckled, thrilled that this scalable spell also had a control effect. He couldn't wait to test it. Later, in a quiet forest, small goblins rested after a hard day's work. They were completely unaware of the danger approaching. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning struck the goblins, injuring but not killing them. Surprised that a single hit wasn't enough, Jiang Li cast arc lightning again. The second strike hit all the goblins once more, and this time, the damage was lethal, taking them down. The damage wasn't as high as his fireball spell, but the mana cost of casting 4 arc lightnings was roughly equal to 1 fireball. Moreover, the casting and cooldown times were faster, and there was no need to gather monsters before attacking. This was exactly what Jiang Li needed, a reliable spell to handle small monsters efficiently. He considered his next target, the area boss of Grey Forest. If a single elite monster brought such rewards, the boss had to be even more lucrative. But having learned from past mistakes, Jiang Li decided to meditate first and restore his mana before proceeding to the boss. Fully replenished, he ventured deep into the forest where the goblin tribe lived. He assumed the area boss must be nearby. Sneaking quietly, Jiang Li slipped past the slumbering goblins gathered around a large goblin statue. He thought it best to quickly locate the boss and strike it with a couple of fireballs before the goblins woke. Unfortunately, as he moved past one goblin, he accidentally snapped a dry branch underfoot. Startled by the noise, the goblin awoke and began to raise an alarm. Before it could alert others, Jiang Li struck the goblin's head, trying to silence it. As expected, the goblin's health dropped, but it didn't die. Enraged, the goblin shouted loudly, waking all the nearby goblins. A furious mob surged after Jiang Li, who then fled, urging them to stop chasing as he needed mana for the boss fight. But when a goblin hurled a rock at him, anger flared within Jiang Li. He stopped running, turned, and cast arc lightning at the pursuers. The spell struck all the goblins, having their health. Determined, Jiang Li launched a second arc lightning attack, knocking them all down. Infuriated that they'd all ganged up on him, he scanned the area for the boss, but it was nowhere to be seen. As he pondered whether the boss was even inside the tribe's territory, the ground suddenly trembled. Jiang Li thought it was an earthquake, but couldn't understand why it occurred so suddenly. Unconsciously, he stepped forward toward the large goblin statue at the tribe's center. Unnoticed by Jiang Li, ominous green light glowed from within the statue's body. Not far away, 3 figures wandered through the forest. The one in the middle, their leader, was Yin Quan, Yin Shu's cousin. Knowing that Jiang Li was training deep in the forest so late, Yin Quan saw an opportunity. He planned to eliminate Jiang Li to gain favor with his cousin Yin Shu. Chuckling, he wondered how his uncle would reward him for this deed. One of Yin Quan's underlings glanced around nervously and asked if it was indeed so late and whether the guy named Jiang was still in the forest. Yin Quan shot him an annoyed glare, demanding whether the underling doubted him. Flustered, the subordinate insisted he would never dare. His only concern was the danger of wandering the woods at night, given the risk of running into elite monsters or a powerful boss that lower-level practitioners like them couldn't handle. Suddenly, that same tremor Jiang Li experienced rippled through the ground beneath them. Yin Quan instantly understood. A boss had just been triggered. His lips curled into a sly grin as he explained to his followers that the boss in this area was the goblin shaman. And although their group, being only at the black iron level, would really struggle, it was best to let whoever was fighting the boss wear down first. Afterward, they could step in and clean up. Meanwhile, the statue in the goblin village shattered, and out emerged the level 20 boss, the goblin shaman. The sight stunned Jiang Li. He wondered if this was the area boss of Greywood Forest. Measuring its energy, Jiang Li noticed that its presence wasn't as intimidating as some previous elite monsters he'd encountered. But before he could think further, the goblin shaman began chanting, conjuring an ice arrow spell. Realizing his opponent was also a mage, Jiang Li grinned and quickly summoned a fireball. He flung the fireball at the goblin shaman, whose casting speed lagged far behind his own since the shaman was still preparing its spell. Flames erupted around the shaman after the impact, and a system notification popped up telling Jiang Li he'd landed a critical hit by striking a weak spot. Yet through the fire, a mysterious shadow lunged at Jiang Li with another ice arrow. Instinctively, Jiang Li threw up his light armor spell, muttering that he figured things wouldn't be so straightforward. When the ice arrow hit the protective barrier, another notification alerted Jiang Li that his light armor had absorbed a direct hit from a level 5 ice arrow, slicing the armor's strength in half. The considerable damage stunned Jiang Li, while the goblin shaman appeared unfazed and unhurt. When the blaze finally subsided, Jiang Li was nowhere to be seen. The goblin shaman scoured the charred ground in search of him, but Jiang Li had cleverly concealed himself behind a tree directly behind the boss. The goblin shaman, sensing motion, fired an ice arrow, though it struck a tree beside Jiang Li's actual hiding place. Observing that his attacks had done little, Jiang Li deduced that the boss's cloak must be enchanted to resist fire-based attacks, providing magic resistance. Exhausted from clearing out the lesser monsters and immediately thrown into a boss battle, Jiang Li assessed his depleted mana and health, realizing he stood no chance unless he could recover first. Intending to regain his mana unnoticed, Jiang Li sat and meditated as the goblin shaman methodically blasted each tree in the area with ice arrows, toppling them one by one. Eventually, only the tree shielding Jiang Li remained. The goblin shaman walked up to the final tree and unleashed an ice arrow. The projectile not only pierced through the wood, but also destroyed Jiang Li's magic armor. The sudden loss of protection roused Jiang Li from his meditation just as the goblin shaman discovered him. The shaman broke out in a wicked laugh and instantly began channeling a massive spell, summoning a barrage of ice arrows. Realizing how dire the situation was, Jiang Li braced himself for the coming onslaught. Jiang Li was utterly stunned as the goblin shaman launched its attack against the very tree he was using for cover. Glancing at his current stats, Jiang Li quickly realized his mana reserves were insufficient to cast a fireball, so he opted to retaliate with a lightning spell instead. The goblin shaman, having just released another ice arrow aimed at Jiang Li, was abruptly struck by the arc of lightning. Its spell was disrupted thanks to the paralyzing effect, causing the shaman to collapse to its knees as its vitality was temporarily drained. Elated, Jiang Li noted that having arc lightning at its highest level meant he could halt the goblin shaman's casting, giving him a clear window of opportunity. Without hesitation, he dashed towards the weakened foe, swiftly snatching the treasured robe off the goblin shaman. Figuring that deprived of this item, the shaman would be especially vulnerable to his spells. Jiang Li decided to strip the boss of its gear first before using guerrilla tactics for the next attack. Now, the advantage was entirely Jiang Li's. With the goblin shaman still reeling from the effects of the lightning arc, another round of electricity left it even worse off, growing angrier by the moment. Scanning the area for any sign of Jiang Li, the shaman glimpsed some white cloth behind a cluster of trees and, believing it had located its enemy, unleashed a barrage of amplified ice arrows at the spot. The missiles blew through the trees, gouging deep holes amid bursts of freezing energy and blue mana. The goblin shaman cackled triumphantly, convinced it had eliminated Jiang Li, only to be startled when the spot proved empty. From another direction, Jiang Li taunted the shaman, asking if it was confused about his whereabouts. Then, before the boss could react, Jiang Li attacked from behind, announcing the end of its reign and hurling a deadly fireball. No longer protected by its prized robe, the goblin shaman hurriedly raised a defensive barrier, but against a fully powered fireball, the shield shattered at once. The explosion was immense, A system alert confirmed a critical hit as the fireball struck another weak point. The shaman collapsed, clinging to just a sliver of life, prompting Jiang Li to mock his opponent for relying on defenses that fell so easily before a maxed-out fireball. Bending down, Jiang Li grabbed a stick, joking that the boss's bad fortune was simply running into him at full strength, and with a final blow, he took its life. Having dispatched the goblin shaman, Jiang Li instantly leveled up 3 times, achieving level 10. Eyeing the boss loot filled him with excitement, especially upon discovering the goblin shaman's staff. He thought it would be a useful tool in coming battles, though he made a face when he inspected the burned remains of the treasured robe. It had been a black iron grade, fire-resistant garment, wearable only by those level 5 and above, and capable of greatly reducing fire-based harm. But its durability was now at 0 from all the damage, rendering it basically worthless. Jiang Li now understood how the boss lasted so long against his fireball, but, seeing the robe's ruined state, discarded it as useless. The real prize was the skill tome. Jiang Li learned the ice arrow technique from the manual, and thanks to his innate talent, the spell instantly advanced from level 5 to its highest tier. Examining the spell's description, he saw it required a brief 2-second cast and 200 mana, delivering substantial single-target damage, dependent on the caster's level. He'd already witnessed the strength of Ice Arrow at level 5, and now wondered just how devastating it could be when fully maxed out. When Jiang Li checked the staff's details, he discovered it was a bronze-grade goblin's resentment wand, which granted a plus 10 boost to magic penetration and required level 7 or higher to wield. The system even warned that equipping this staff would mark him as an enemy to all goblins. Jiang Li was astonished to find such rare qualities, which explained how the shaman's ice arrow penetrated his maxed-out light armor earlier. Feeling pleased, he realized this wand would let him face off against monsters with inherent resistance to magic. As Jiang Li was sorting through his haul, a sudden voice commanded him to freeze and put his hands up. Turning, Jiang Li saw Yin Quan and his group standing nearby. They surveyed the area, assuming from the scene that Jiang Li's teammates had all been slain, unable to imagine he'd face the boss alone. Yin Quan recognized Jiang Li and smugly congratulated him for defeating such a formidable foe right after his awakening as a professional, but teased that his supposedly abandoned friends were likely stronger than he was. Jiang Li, still confused, asked how Yin Quan even knew his identity. Yin Quan proudly revealed himself as a member of the Yin family from Jinan and explained that he'd heard tales of Jiang Li bullying his cousin at school, adding that the Yin clan was nothing to be trifled with. Staying in character, Jiang Li claimed Yin was actually thought of as a genius during their school days and insisted he'd never dare bully him. Pretending camaraderie, Jiang Li offered up some of his loot to Yin Quan, suggesting they could be allies. Yin Quan laughed off the proposal, declaring he'd take everything but wouldn't consider friendship, then warned Jiang Li to choose whether to keep his hands or legs, as he'd try not to cripple him. Meanwhile, Jiang Li had already started meditating to recover mana, and he urged not to resort to violence immediately. One of Yin Quan's henchmen, grabbing up loot, noted Jiang Li's use of the meditation technique to refuel his mana. Not bothered, Yin Quan scoffed that even a fully rested Jiang Li would be no match for 3 Black Iron practitioners. He added that as a mediocre mage, Jiang Li couldn't possibly best them. With a sly smile, Jiang Li remarked that knowing his opponent's ranks made things easier, unintentionally unsettling Yin Quan, who warned that they wouldn't give Jiang Li the chance to cast spells. At that moment, Jiang Li fired off his lightning arc, paralyzing all 3 would-be attackers in one swoop. Now, with the tables turned, Jiang Li joked about how villains always talk themselves into trouble, sarcastically wondering why they weren't fighting back as he waited for more mana to regenerate. Livid but helpless, Yin Quan demanded to know how Jiang Li could cast so quickly. Without explanation, Jiang Li unleashed his fireball, triggering a massive blast that left all 3 of them defeated. Rummaging through Yin Quan's belongings, Jiang Li was pleased by the bounty, thinking it only made sense to loot as much as possible after defeating both a boss and a rival group. Still, he was slightly dissatisfied at only moving up 3 levels, deciding he'd need to relocate tomorrow to keep leveling efficiently. Heading out, Jiang Li glanced back at the fallen Yin Quan, almost amused by how 3 seasoned players got beaten by so-called newbie. It was hardly a story they'd want to share. Soon after, Jiang Li arrived in the city of Rose, weighed down by everything he'd collected and wishing for an item that could store it all more easily. After walking further, he reached the Golden Dragon Treasury to cash in his spoils. The receptionist, a cheerful young woman in a playful bunny uniform, greeted him warmly, only to gape at the heap of loot he'd dumped on the counter. Jiang Li explained he wanted to sell various materials and equipment. She instructed him to wait while she processed everything. Shortly after, she returned to announce that, factoring in dealers' rates, he'd earned 972,000 Flame Dragon coins, but would round it up to a full 1,000,000. Jiang Li could scarcely believe it. In just one haul, he'd made more than his mother earned in months. Realizing this was the difference between ordinary people and true professionals, determination swelled inside him. Soon he'd be able to give his mother the life she deserved. After securing his payment, Jiang Li inquired about buying basic skill books for mages. The receptionist affirmed they were available and invited him to follow her. While Jiang Li dealt with his purchases below, Mo Qing, recognized as a prodigy at Golden City Academy and one of Jiang Li's classmates, spied him from an upper floor, surprised to spot him there. But her attendant reminded her their own business was ready, and she departed. The bunny receptionist then led Jiang Li into the Golden Dragon Treasury's library, recommending a selection of 5 basic mage spells for him to browse. Among them were the Level D Slowness Technique, priced at 600,000 Flame Dragon coins, and 4 variations of Level D Ice Arrow Technique, each at the same cost. Seeing the prices, Jiang Li was amazed. Apparently, even 1,000,000 coins didn't go very far here. Jiang Li realized that for now, his purchases could only extend to some low-level spells suitable for transitional use. At this stage, he was proficient with Fireball, Arc Lightning, and Ice Arrow, covering both single-target and area of effect magic, plus he had the Light Armor spell for defense. Therefore, he chose to buy the Level D Slowness Technique as a control skill, reasoning that although Arc Lightning caused paralysis, its effect was too brief. The Slowness Technique, a level 10 spell with only a 1-second cooldown and a casting time of 2 seconds, offered longer control. While finalizing his business, the receptionist mentioned she would personally lead an expedition into the dungeon the next day. Although she was discussing work, her mind kept drifting to the person she'd noticed earlier in the hall. She was puzzled, recalling that Jiang Li's awakening ceremony had supposedly failed, leaving him a mere ordinary mage, so his presence here seemed unlikely. Spotting her distraction, her butler asked what was on her mind, catching her off guard. She quickly brushed it off as nothing important. Her butler reassured her that clearing this dungeon would rocket her level upward, likely reaching Black Iron tier with ease, and by the upcoming trial competition in a week, she'd probably surpass Miss Li from the Li family. Hearing that, she was thrilled and urged her butler to assemble Moda and the others to prepare, stating she would personally lead the dungeon assault when the time came. Meanwhile, on the Gale Plains, where she had planned to go, 2 Gale Wolves were in hot pursuit of Jiang Li. He responded by summoning his Lightning Arc spell, which struck both wolves, having their health and paralyzing them. Jiang Li was pleasantly surprised by the damage boost his magic had gained from leveling up, and thought that if he faced goblins again, this attack might one-shot them. Suddenly, another Gale Wolf lunged at him from behind, aiming to clamp its jaws on his neck, but its teeth shattered against the light armor spell Jiang Li had already cast in anticipation. Realizing the chase was unending, Jiang Li resumed running with the wolves hot on his heels. Turning back, he unleashed his Lightning Arc spell once more, yet one wolf evaded it nimbly by sidestepping. Jiang Li was taken aback that the Gale Wolves could dodge his attacks. Adapting quickly, Jiang Li cast his newly acquired Slowness Technique. A glowing purple magic circle formed beneath the wolves, drastically reducing their movement speed. Raising an eyebrow, he remarked on how the max-level slowness spell required no aiming or long casting and was impossible to evade. However, since it affected only one target at a time, using it repeatedly would be resource-heavy. Jiang Li knew he had to eliminate the other Gale Wolves swiftly before more arrived. Shortly after, having dispatched the enemies, Jiang Li drank a blue potion to restore health and mana, grateful for the supplies he'd stocked at the Golden Dragon Treasury the previous day, which made monster grinding more efficient. At this point, he had reached level 11 and was hiding along a road, mulling over how to take on the elite monster he sought, a level 20 bloodline wolf, triple the size of regular Gale Wolves. Opting for a surprise attack, he concealed himself behind a rock, and, once the bloodline wolf's back was turned, struck with lightning arc. The wolf was paralyzed, and Jiang Li leapt from his hiding spot to blast it with a fireball spell, claiming he would take down its mother. The resulting explosion was massive, and a system notification confirmed a critical strike on the wolf's weak point, leaving it badly wounded. The rest of the Gale Wolves were already dead, making it a one-on-one battle. The injured bloodline wolf lunged at Jiang Li, but he cast slowness on it, commanding it to behave. The curse immobilized the creature completely, trapping it before Jiang Li's feet. Observing his foe, Jiang Li admitted he didn't yet know the wolf's exact weak point, but was confident in his plan to burn it with fire, mocking its hairiness, weakness, and vulnerability. Terrified, the wolf recoiled, recalling the pain from previous fireball attacks. After defeating the bloodline wolf, Jiang Li leveled up twice, reaching level 13. As loot, he gained a black iron dagger and ring, both compact and easy to carry, raising his spirits as he wondered what their selling price might be. While gathering his spoils, the earth suddenly quaked violently underfoot, startling Jiang Li. Before he could process what was happening, he heard a distant roar and noticed a massive sandstorm approaching rapidly. Only upon closer scrutiny, it wasn't sand but a raging horde of monsters. Fear flickered as Jiang Li prepared to drink a blue mana potion, muttering that he had just fought an elite monster and didn't deserve such an onslaught. However, the monsters bypassed him without attacking, running straight past to his rear. Though initially relieved, his concern deepened, realizing this meant something significant. He sprinted toward the main base, knowing wolves were pack animals, and only the Wolf King could summon such a massive pack. Someone had triggered the area boss. Jiang Li called out, determined he would not let anyone else reach the monster first. It belonged to him. Meanwhile, near the boss monster's cave, bandits had surrounded the red-haired girl Vivi and her dwindled party, who earlier had aided Jiang Li by giving him a mana recovery potion. Only 3 members remained alive, including her. A furious bald man from their group confronted the bandits for exploiting the situation, demanding to know what kind of heroes they were. The bandit leader, unfazed, retorted that although they weren't true heroes, the bald man should blame himself for recklessly challenging the boss without preparation. If they didn't seize the opportunity, who else would? The bandits set their sights on the survivors, laughing derisively as the bald man's equipment and the blood-striped Wolf King were now theirs by right of conquest. Both the bald man and another survivor, were terrified. Only the 3 of them remained alive from their party. The bald man pleaded with the bandits, offering to hand over both his equipment and the blood-striped Wolf King if they would spare their lives. The bandit leader chuckled darkly and agreed, but insisted the priest must be brought to him first. He revealed he was a pervert and promised that once he'd had his fun, he would naturally release them. Terrified, Vivi called out to her captain, the bald man, for help. However, he'd already made up his mind. He begged Ian not to blame him, confessing he wanted to survive. Approaching Vivi with the intention of delivering her to the bandits for safety, he was met with her desperate pleas and tears as she begged him not to come near. Just then, lightning suddenly struck the bandits, stunning everyone present. The bandit leader, furious and shocked, demanded to know who dared ruin his plans. Sensing movement behind him, he drew his sword, challenging the attacker to reveal themselves. The lightning strike had come from none other than Jiang Li, who smiled as he addressed the bandits. "It's not even dark yet, and you're already robbing? That's dedication." He readied a fireball spell to attack, but abruptly, an assassin lunged at him from behind. Jiang Li whirled around and incinerated the assailant with a fireball, stating he hadn't finished speaking yet and demanding not to be interrupted. Seeing Jiang Li's power, the bald man abandoned Vivi and fled, pleading for his life. Overcome with relief, Vivi was deeply moved to see Jiang Li come to her aid. The bandit leader, now unnerved, wondered if any allies remaining could turn the tide, seeing how all his men had fallen with a single strike. He realized his opponent's power was overwhelming, but despite this understanding, he still underestimated Jiang Li because he was merely a mage. Urging the remaining bandits to attack him all at once to prevent him from casting spells, the leader stepped forward. Annoyed, Jiang Li cast a fireball and mocked their reckless courage, querying why they risked death so eagerly. The fireball engulfed them all, burning them alive. Terrified at the carnage, the bandit leader threw down his sword and dropped to his knees, crying out, "My lord, this has all been a misunderstanding." Pointing at Vivi, he urged Jiang Li to take her and leave the area because the blood-run Wolf King resided in the cave nearby. But Jiang Li was far from ready to back down. He fired an ice arrow at the leader, warning him that since he'd chosen to attack first, he must accept the consequences. The arrow struck true, slaying the bandit leader. In his dying breath, the leader warned Jiang Li that the Blood Wolf mercenaries would not let him escape unscathed. After defeating all bandits, Jiang Li gathered their gear with satisfaction, pleased he could now employ many skills in quick succession. The level up had brought a noticeable boost. Vivi approached with hesitation, expressing gratitude for Jiang Li's rescue, a bit embarrassed since she hadn't expected him to be so powerful. She had worried about him before. After packing everything up, Jiang Li told her it was nothing, reminding her she had saved him once as well, so they were even. Before venturing into the boss cave, he invited her along. Initially hesitant, Vivi accepted after witnessing Jiang Li's strength. As they traveled together, she marveled at his skills, defeating thugs with ease and now prepared to challenge the area boss. She wondered if his relatively young age might conceal a powerful and rare class. Upon entering the cave, they spotted the boss, a level 25 Blue Runa Wolf King, sleeping soundly. They took cover behind a rock to observe. Vivi, only level 20 and a recent Black Iron rank, worried that just the two of them might not be enough to defeat such a foe. Concerns flickered in her eyes as she looked at Jiang Li, who appeared ready to attack with a fireball. Sensing her anxiety, Jiang Li dashed forward and launched the fireball at the beast, telling her they wouldn't know until they tried. When the fireball hit, a massive explosion followed, but with no critical hit notification, leading Jiang Li to suspect the Wolf King was immune to fire. The monster awoke with a deafening roar, declaring, "Intruder, meet your end." Jiang Li noted the Wolf King's health dropped only slightly from the fireball, confirming that while it lacked fire vulnerability, it seemed to have no magic resistance. As the Wolf King charged, Jiang Li dodged and prepared to cast the slowness spell, hoping to control the beast. But before he could restrain it, the Wolf King leapt away and swiftly counterattacked. Jiang Li's light armor absorbed the strike, saving him just in time. Acknowledging this was a true boss fight, Jiang Li realized the shield was almost broken, and despite the slowness spell, the Wolf King's agility remained impressive. Knowing he needed a better plan, Jiang Li aimed the ice arrow at the Wolf King. Vivi, acting as a priest, cast an enhancement on Jiang Li to boost his magical power. Emboldened, Jiang Li launched the ice arrow again, but the Wolf King easily evaded it, leaving Vivi shocked. Jiang Li revealed his strategy. He wanted the Wolf King to dodge and lower its defenses. Changing the ice arrow's trajectory mid-flight, he struck the vulnerable spot at the back of the Wolf King's neck. A system notification confirmed a critical hit. The Wolf King's health plummeted, leaving only a small remainder. Jiang Li remarked that he'd learned this technique from bosses like this, confirming that the neck was the wolf's weak point. Infuriated and weakened, the Wolf King roared, unleashing a crimson aura and going berserk. Vivi warned Jiang Li to be cautious as many smaller gale wolves emerged from behind, rushing to aid their master. Jiang Li was surprised to see the familiar ruffians again, realizing this boss had the ability to summon lesser minions to assist in battle. Jiang Li was taken aback when he noticed those ruffians from earlier had reappeared. It dawned on him that the Blood Rune Wolf King possessed a summoning ability, pulling forth lesser creatures to battle for him. Realizing this boss had such overwhelming control, Jiang immediately prepared his fireball spell. Vivi quickly joined at his side, lending her support magic. She urged him to stay alert while weaving spells to slow down the gale wolves and constantly replenishing Jiang's mana. As Jiang pressed forward into the fray, wolves swarmed him from every direction. Without losing his composure, he hurled fireballs into the encroaching pack. The resulting explosion shook the cavern with immense force, sending shockwaves rebounding against the cave walls. Countless summoned wolves were obliterated instantly, leaving only shimmering remnants of experience behind. Each gale wolf earned him 20 experience points. The fire's illumination exposed the narrow terrain of the cavern, and Jiang realized something crucial. By oversummoning his minions, the Wolf King had inadvertently limited his own agility. A wry smile appeared on Jiang's face as the boss had restrained itself. Addressing the Blood Rune Wolf King directly, Jiang taunted him. If the beast dared employ that summoning trick again, perhaps Jiang might consider sparing him. The Wolf King, infuriated by this mockery, answered with a furious roar. As expected, another batch of gale wolves materialized. Jiang seized the opening, unleashing a devastating barrage of fireballs. With perfect timing, he annihilated the pack, the system announcing his level rise to level 14. Still, the battle was far from over. He continued slaughtering the summoned minions, steadily collecting more experience. Meanwhile, Vivi too shared in the gains, receiving 10 points for every wolf he killed as they were party members. However, her face revealed growing strain. She had been pouring vast amounts of magical energy into aiding Jiang non-stop, keeping his mana restored, his attack stronger, and the enemy slowed. Even so, she steadfastly maintained her role despite exhaustion. After constant battling, Jiang hit another milestone, reaching level 15. He quickly drank down a recovery potion and, regaining vigor, challenged the Wolf King again. This time, he tapped into ice arrow magic. He remarked aloud that had he known the boss relied on such abilities, he would never have bothered dealing with weaker monsters. The Wolf King faltered, panting heavily. Relentlessly expending energy to summon allies had left it significantly weakened. Each of its illusions of advantage vanished before Jiang's relentless onslaught. The wolf was horrified to witness how easily all its summoned minions dissolved to nothing. Jiang mocked it once again, asking bluntly, "Is this truly all you are capable of?" Disappointed, Jiang sighed as though this tyrannical monster no longer posed a real threat. Still, he set loose another wave of ice arrows, speaking coldly of extracting the beast's final worth. Arrows of frost pierced through, and in utter despair, the Wolf King cried out against fate, calling his opponent a devil. Before its death, the proud beast shed tears, declaring Jiang to be a monster worse than itself. When the beast finally collapsed, Vivi's eyes widened as her system notification chimed. She had unexpectedly leveled up to 21. The sudden growth shocked her, as even by participating indirectly, she had grown. Jiang too advanced further, reaching level 16, gaining 3 levels in total and amassing impressive loot. Satisfaction radiated from him at the victory. To Vivi, however, there was deeper amazement. Jiang had deliberately taken advantage of the boss's summoning skill to farm immense amounts of experience. She couldn't help but wonder, who here was more like the real boss? While picking through the glowing drops, Jiang called Vivi over. Without hesitation, he held out a wand toward her share. She stood stunned, insisting she had done little to deserve it. Jiang countered firmly. She had been vital, ensuring his mana was constantly restored and shoring up his magical damage output. That, he explained, made her an indispensable support. Moreover, if danger came again, her role would be crucial. Hearing this unexpected praise, Vivi's cheeks reddened. She accepted the wand shyly, pledging that as his support, she would do her duty. Just from Jiang's words, a sense of importance warmed her heart. Together, they moved onward through the dungeon passages. Suddenly, Jiang recalled two skill books among the loot, Lightness and Swamp. Thanks to his skill effects, both were already maximized upon acquisition. Reading through their descriptions, he discovered that Lightness dramatically enhanced mobility, explaining how the Wolf King had resisted slowing effects during the fight. Swamp, meanwhile, generated mire to entrap multiple foes simultaneously. Jiang made a mental note to test it in combat soon. As he walked ahead, immersed in thought, Vivi paused, noticing a faint glow, an orchid-like plant with purple petals. She called Jiang back to inspect it. The ghost orchid, though not valuable to seasoned professionals, for ordinary people, it was incredibly precious, known to cure a multitude of illnesses. She plucked one carefully, offering it to Jiang. He accepted it with surprising gratitude, explaining softly that his mother, an ordinary woman worn by years of work, still suffered from chronic conditions. With this herb, perhaps he could ease her pain. Touched, Vivi smiled at his sincerity. But before she could comment further, she gasped and pointed. Part of the cavern wall ahead glimmered oddly. Jiang advanced, urging her to step aside. He conjured another fireball and blasted it forward. The stone crumbled apart, revealing an astonishing find: the hidden entrance to a dungeon's secret realm. His system notified him of the discovery: a level 25, black iron, ranked secret dungeon, one of two entrances to a dark altar. Its difficulty was classified as hard. Requirements: entry permitted only to professionals under level 23, with between 2 and 6 members. Vivi worried aloud, suggesting they withdraw to prepare before venturing further. But Jiang interjected firmly, insisting that retreat was not an option. If she truly felt unsafe, she could return, but should she decide to continue alongside him, he vowed she would not need to worry. He would protect her. Flustered yet inspired, Vivi agreed, determination sparking in her tone. If danger arose, she swore she would hold enemies back to give him the chance to prevail. Thus united, the two entered the dark altar's shadowy depths. Their quest objective appeared: stop the ritual of the necromancer, mage by. At this revelation, Jiang was exhilarated. Mage-type enemies often dropped specialized equipment perfect for him. Excitement almost overwhelmed his caution. He sprinted ahead, imagination lit by possibilities of rich spoils. Just then his instinct screamed. He grabbed Vivi's wrist and pulled her behind a tree. Startled, she asked what was wrong. With a nod forward, he directed her gaze. Looming before them was a fearsome sight: a skeleton knight, armored and astride a skeletal steed, exuding menace. The monster was level 20. One look confirmed this dungeon's peril. Ordinary mobs were already so strong. Jiang grinned. Such danger promised equally great rewards. What he hadn't noticed was the presence behind them. 3 more skeletal knights emerged, their hollow eyes fixed upon the intruders. Voices rattled from their jaws: outsiders. Both Jiang and Vivi froze as the undead knights lunged, snarling harsh accusations about spies. Luckily, their limited intellect caused them to delay a direct strike, affording Jiang a chance. Without hesitation, he decided this was the moment to test the newly acquired swamp spell. Stretching out his hands, he invoked the technique. At once, the ground before them transformed, bubbling into a mire, threatening to ensnare their skeletal foes. The newly acquired swamp spell revealed its devastating potential. Enemies caught within a 30-meter radius were instantly bogged down, their movements slowed to a crawl, barely 10% of their normal speed. As Jiang Li activated the spell, The earth before him softened into a bubbling mire. The skeletal knights pursuing him flailed helplessly as their armored legs sank deeper with every frantic step. The more they thrashed, the faster they were dragged into the muck. Recognizing this perfect opportunity, Jung summoned a roaring fireball and hurled it into the immobilized foes. The explosion incinerated the skeletal warriors instantly. In a single strike, the level 20 knights were nothing more than fading light particles. Jung was impressed by the sheer versatility of his fully mastered swamp spell. Its range allowed him to control crowds with ease instead of painstakingly fighting them one by one. Now, battles against multiple enemies would be far more efficient. Before he could continue exploring, a faint cry for help echoed through the cavern. Vivi stiffened, startled by the sound. Someone's in trouble. Could another party have encountered a boss? She asked, worry etched across her face. Jung listened carefully, then shook his head. No, it sounds like some intruders have stumbled into the dark mage's territory. Wait here. I'll check it out. Following the source of the cry, Jung discovered a young girl, mooching, surrounded by 2 knight bodyguards. The trio was encircled by relentless skeletal warriors, with no escape in sight. The knights urged her to use her teleportation scroll immediately, insisting her safety mattered far more than slaying a few monsters. Mooching, however, faltered, reluctant to flee without having claimed even a single monster kill. Their hesitation proved dangerous. One of the skeletal knights lunged forward, weapon raised. One of her guards visibly panicked, unable to parry in time. Just as the scythe was about to fall, Jiang Li appeared in a flash, conjuring his light armor spell. The magical shield deflected the skeleton's blow effortlessly. Mooching, Jiang muttered in recognition as she stared wide-eyed at him. Her bodyguard, hearing Jung's name, recalled that he attended the same academy as their young lady. To him, Jung was nothing more than a student who had awakened just recently, far below their level. With a sneer, he dismissed Jung's presence. These monsters are beyond a rookie's capabilities. Don't throw away your life trying to act like a hero. Jung only smiled politely. I appreciate your concern, but worry about yourselves. He extended his hand, summoned another fireball, and sent it crashing into the skeletons. The flames consumed them instantly, awarding him 40 experience points apiece. The system chimed. He had risen to level 17. Both bodyguards were dumbstruck. To kill level 20 monsters so easily in one blow was beyond anything they expected from a so-called beginner. Even Mooching herself was amazed. She admitted aloud how impressive such strength was. Yet her guardians stubbornly refused to acknowledge it, muttering excuses that he had simply finished off weakened enemies they had already been dealing with. They urged him brusquely to leave, declaring his presence a distraction. Mooching, however, was certain. It was truly Jiang Li. He didn't seem to recognize her at first until he studied her more closely. Then it clicked. She was Mooching, the prodigy often compared with the renowned Limon. Ah, so you're here too. Trying to level inside this dungeon. Jung asked casually, his tone warm but firm. It's dangerous here. Take care. His advice stung the bodyguard's pride. Don't get conceited, one of them snapped. We're elite black iron rank adventurers. We don't need a lecture from you. Unfazed, Jung shrugged. If that's the case, I'll be on my way. To himself, he mused that if her guards struggled so much against ordinary skeletal mobs, competing with him for boss-level spoils was out of the question. Just as he turned to leave, Mooching called out, halting him. Wait, you're already level 17, aren't you? He paused, puzzled. Yes. Why do you ask? Her eyes widened in disbelief. To achieve level 17 within only days of awakening was unheard of. She couldn't hide her curiosity. With a decisive breath, she pulled out a green pendant, pressing a hidden gem embedded within it. A dazzling yellow stone appeared in her hand. I'd like to ask a favor, she said, looking at him intently. Help me clear this dungeon. As a reward, I'll offer you this. She held out the gleaming jewel, the black iron promotion gem. Jung's heart skipped. His gaze lingered on the pendant itself, wondering if it was a storage artifact, a rare and costly possession. The thought left him slightly flushed. Muqing misinterpreted his gaze. Embarrassed, she quickly turned away, covering her chest with her hands. Please don't stare at me like that. Yung blinked in bewilderment, completely misreading her intentions. He knew well, however, the true worth of a gem. Typically, one could achieve Black Iron rank either by competing in the formal trial or using such promotion stones. But gems of this caliber were rare and expensive, usually squandered on no one. Still, Yung noted privately that at his current leveling speed, he'd easily hit level 20 within this dungeon. Without a promotion to Black Iron rank, any additional experience would be wasted. Accepting the gem seemed like destiny. At last, he replied, Muqing, I can help, but you'll need to send your bodyguard away first. I don't intend to share earned experience unnecessarily. His words immediately enraged the knights. What arrogance! Just because you're a little strong doesn't mean you can talk like that. One spat. The other warned Muqing not to follow someone as reckless as him, for if word spread that they had abandoned her, their reputations as guards would be ruined. But Muqing's patience had run out. She turned to them with a cold look. You're dismissed. Leave us now. That's an order. The knights stiffened in shock, displeasure playing on their faces. Realizing her determination, one knight relented with a scowl. Very well, but if you insist on trusting this boy, allow us to test his strength once. Otherwise, it's too reckless. Miss Muqing, at least permit that. He raised his blade, pointing it directly at Yung. Let's see what you're truly capable of. Yung smirked in response, conjuring fire in his hand. If you insist, then I'll show you. But don't expect me to go easy. The flames swelled unnaturally, forming a massive fireball, its size far beyond anything a beginner mage should create. The knight faltered as dread ran through him. Is such power even possible at his level? As the searing orb sped forward, tears welled in the man's eyes. He was certain this would be his end. But inches before colliding, the fire suddenly dispersed. Yung lowered his hand calmly. That should be enough to prove the point. If you still want to press the matter, I won't stop myself next time. The knight let out a shaky laugh, lowering his sword. Your abilities are commendable. Perhaps not quite as refined as ours, but enough. With your power, clearing the dungeon won't be an issue. Although Muqing's bodyguards tried to mask their fear, in their hearts they knew the truth. If Jiang Li had chosen to go all out, they might not have survived at all. Putting on stiff expressions, they bowed slightly to their young lady. Miss, we'll be taking our leave. Please be careful. Without waiting for a response, they quickly retreated. Once they were gone, Yung led Muqing to where Vivi had been waiting. As soon as Vivi spotted him, she ran forward, a trace of worry showing. Yung, you're finally back. I've been waiting so long. Next time, please don't leave me behind. I was so worried. Yung answered with a faint smile. I'll try my best not to. His calm words reassured her, though her closeness did not escape Muqing's notice. Watching Vivi cling to him so openly stirred an odd sense of jealousy in her chest. She silently wondered about their relationship, thinking, could they already be together? I've never heard of Jiang Li having a girlfriend. Trying to compose herself, Muqing approached Vivi first. Sister, I'm still not sure how to address you properly. My name is Muqing. I'm in the same class as Yung. Vivi returned the gesture warmly and replied with her usual smile, just call me Vivi. Hearing that simple and affectionate address made Muqing feel even more unsettled. Something about their comfort level rubbed at her. Without thinking too much further, she suddenly hugged Yung from behind, her arms wrapping tightly around him. Yung, I have something to talk with you about, she insisted, her expression unreadable. Vivi's eyes widened in surprise at Muqing's sudden boldness. But Muqing ignored her reaction, asking bluntly, Yung, I heard your awakening process wasn't smooth. Is that true? Yung nodded. Yes, I awakened as an ordinary mage, nothing rare or special. But you don't have to be born with some grand title to become strong. Power has its own path. I simply chose mine. Not long after, he gave a demonstration. With a surge of mana, he activated his lightness spell, moving in a blur across the forest floor. A glowing fireball followed, striking down another line of skeletal knights. Each explosion lit up the dark cavern, and another string of experience points flowed into his system. Again, his level ticked upward, level 18 reached. From the bushes, Vivi and Mooching watched his combat ability in fascination. Mooching whispered, bewildered, "Has he always fought like this?" Vivi shook her head softly. "The first time I saw it, I was shocked too." Mooching continued staring, struggling to piece it together. All observable signs pointed to him relying only on entry-level mage skills. Yet the effectiveness, the force, the sheer destructive scale of his magic was more than beginner spells should offer. How can a supposed starter magician be this terrifying? Before their curiosity could settle, the atmosphere suddenly shifted. A chilling aura descended as a figure emerged from the shadows. An armored skeleton knight commander, towering over the lesser undead, marched into the fray. Its menacing scythe glistened with dark energy, and a suffocating aura poured off it. The system identified it as level 27. Jung's eyes narrowed. Another boss monster? Without hesitation, he cast Swamp Spell, and once again the battlefield shifted into a mire. The commander and its skeletal troops sank as the spell immobilized them. "No matter how many come, the strategy is the same," Jung muttered confidently. "With control skills, these undead won't even touch me." But this time, he underestimated his opponent. The knight commander let out a guttural roar, and suddenly the shadow of its skeletal steed burst forth violently from its body. The phantom horse bolted forward, crashing directly into Jung's abdomen. With a sickening thud, he was thrown across the clearing, slamming hard into a tree. Pain coursed through him as blood surged in his chest. Both Vivi and Mooching cried out in shock. With Jung forced back, his swamp spell collapsed. The commander and other knights broke free, charging directly toward the two girls. Panic filled Vivi's eyes, but she quickly steadied herself. "Mooching, go check on Jung. I'll try to hold them off." Though fear prickled through Mooching's body, courage flickered. Gritting her teeth, she prepared to move even as the towering commander barreled closer. At that instant, a sharp streak pierced the air. An ice arrow hit the commander squarely, frost exploding across its armor. Jung stumbled back into view, clutching his side but refusing to fall. Mooching gasped, eyes wide. "You're still fighting? Are you all right?" Jung grimaced, but forced a smile. The lightness spell's blessing still lingers. Otherwise, that blow would have done much worse. His expression hardened. He hadn't expected this commander to wield such dangerous ranged abilities. Vivi rushed to his side, her palms glowing as she channeled healing magic. Wounds began to seal slightly, the pain dulling enough for him to fight again. Yet the skeleton army was relentless. Moments later, Vivi stepped forward, gripping her staff tightly. Her lips moved quickly as divine words poured from her mouth. "The glow of holy light. Bless my allies, weaken our enemies, and pave the path to victory." A radiant column of white brilliance erupted into the air. Its holy aura immediately pushed back the skeletal swarm, stopping their advance completely. Mooching's eyes widened. "Jung, this is the perfect chance. Use wide-area magic now." "Got it," Jung responded, raising his staff toward the sky. He summoned the fury of lightning and unleashed an arcing chain of electricity. Lightning arc. Bolts spread across the cavern, striking down multiple enemies at once. Crackling streaks ripped through skeletons and seared even the commander itself. Jung's breath caught in his throat when he realized the lightning arc's damage output had surged far beyond expectation. Vivi immediately explained, equally astonished by the glowing barrier above them. "This is the blessing of holy light. It empowers your attacks with holy attributes while forcing enemies into states of weakness and blindness. Every strike we land now inflicts several times the damage. This is the ability of a true holy priest." Lightning rebounded, paralyzing the commander for several moments. But the reprieve was brief. Soon the paralysis shattered, and the towering knight lifted its scythe once more, stepping forward again despite its injuries. Its hollow gaze bore down on them, hateful and unyielding. Use the blessing again, Mooching, Jung shouted, bracing himself. She nodded quickly, already praying once more, fueling the aura further. Vivi also boosted his spell output, her support magic doubling his strength. Careful, Jung warned, seeing the commander blur into motion. In the blink of an eye, the massive skeletal warrior had closed the gap, its scythe raised high to deliver a decapitating blow directly at him. Just as the lethal blade was about to descend, Mo Qing invoked her divine ability. Radiant energy erupted, flooding the battlefield with an overpowering brilliance. The skeleton recoiled, unable to withstand the searing divine light, its hollow sockets shutting tightly as it stumbled backward. When the light faded and silence returned, the skeletal commander shook off the disorientation and searched frantically for its prey. Yet at that moment, a calm and mocking voice echoed from above. "Looking for me? Don't bother. I'm right here." High in the sky, Jiang Li hovered, his staff raised. He released his ice arrow spell, a glistening projectile descending like winter's judgment. The icy arrow pierced straight through the knight's ribcage, leaving a gaping wound in its undead frame. With a final groan, the monstrous commander collapsed, its scythe clattering against the cold stone floor. Landing confidently before the fallen adversary, Jiang Li raised his voice in victory. "The battle is won." As the commander dissolved into ash, Jiang Li's system notifications chimed one after another. His level had risen to 20. In addition, he was awarded a C-rank skill book, Bone Spear. Thanks to his unique talent, the newly acquired Bone Spear spell instantly reached its maximum proficiency. The skill possessed lethal properties, launching sharp spears of bone that not only inflicted great damage, but also weakened the struck area, especially when targeting vulnerabilities. And if a weak point was already exposed, the additional damage multiplied ruthlessly. Jiang Li was not the only one to grow stronger. Mo Qing's level now stood at 29, while Vivi reached 22. Such progress in a single battle was rare. Still, Jiang Li encountered a dilemma. His skill slots were completely filled. Although the Bone Spear spell was undeniably powerful, it was classified as exclusive to Black Iron mages, meaning he could delay the acquisition until he advanced his class. He decided to hold on to it for now, mulling over which ability he might replace in the future. While he was lost in thought, Mo Qing gently approached and handed him a Black Iron promotion gem. Her cheeks colored slightly as she urged, "Take this, consider it a reward in advance. If you grow stronger, it benefits all of us in this dungeon raid." Hesitant at first, Jiang Li accepted the gem. He thanked her earnestly, promising in return, "I owe you a favor, and I'll repay it twice over someday." Upon hearing this, Mo Qing's heart fluttered. When Jiang Li briefly held her hand, she became completely dazed, retreating into a haze of flustered dreams, barely registering anything else around her. Meanwhile, outside the dungeon's entrance, a storm of conflict brewed. Mo Qing's butler had just learned from the knights that his lady had been left inside, without protection. His fury erupted instantly. He struck the bodyguards harshly and roared, "Have you all lost your reason? How dare you abandon the young miss in such a perilous dungeon?" The bodyguard tried to defend themselves, nervously insisting, "That young man, Jiang Li, he may be a novice, but his power is astonishing." Hearing this, the butler's anger deepened. "A novice? What kind of absurd excuse is that?" Before his tirade could continue, one of his subordinates pointed frantically at the dungeon gate. A dark shift was occurring. The once bright blue dungeon entrance had turned blood red. An ominous system alert appeared before their eyes. Unknown phenomenon detected. Current Black Iron difficulty dungeon Dark Altar has escalated to abyssal level. Exiting once entered, impossible. Terror overtook the butler. Realizing the grave danger his lady now faced, Butler Fu quickly composed himself and barked orders. Assemble every elite under level 25. We march into the dungeon immediately. The young miss must be saved, no matter the cost. Inside, unaware of the turmoil outside, Jiang Li sat in meditation, refining his power using the promotion gem. While he focused entirely on his breakthrough, Mo Qing and Vivi erected a protective watch. Suddenly, Vivi pricked her ears at a sound from the surrounding forest. She called out sharply, "Who's there?" From the shadows emerged a sinister figure clad in dark robes. His voice was mocking, dripping with malice. "So, you are the intruders. I admit, it's impressive that you defeated my minions. But this is where your story ends." The oppressive aura confirmed his identity. A level 30 dungeon boss, the dark mage Gui. Mo Qing turned pale. A dungeon boss hunting intruders actively? Such behavior was abnormal and terrifying. Yet Jiang Li remained locked in breakthrough. Disturbing him now could derail everything. Thus, Mo Qing resolved to hold her ground and stall the enemy. But just as the situation became dire, Butler Fu and his elite knights surged into the clearing. "My lady, are you unharmed?" they cried. Overwhelmed with relief, Mo Qing realized she no longer had to shoulder the fight with just Vivi. Gui's expression twisted with fury. Believing these reinforcements were part of a trap devised against him, he cursed, "So, more pests dare challenge me?" Chanting swiftly, he slammed his staff to the ground. The earth trembled violently as a forest of jagged rock spikes stabbed upward. Several knights were impaled instantly, their cries filling the air. Those who dodged clustered defensively around Mo Qing. One knight snarled, "Dark Mage Gui, your strength is overrated." But his arrogance was short-lived. Above him, a massive shadow fell. A terrifying form descended with crushing force, flattening him in an instant. The ground cracked where the monster landed. Rising from the smoke was a colossal fiend, an abyssal demon lord, its level completely unidentifiable. Even in fragments of moonlight, its twisted horns and towering form emanated despair. The demon snarled, its guttural voice reverberating across the battlefield. "Who dares summon me?" Every knight's courage faltered. This wasn't just a powerful creature. It was a fiend from the deepest layers of the abyss. Panic rippled among them. Dark Mage Gui proudly stepped forward, bowing slightly. "It is I who summoned you, Almighty One. Allow me to present these souls as an offering." The demon glanced dismissively at the knights, scoffing. "These pathetic mortals? They aren't even fit to fill the gaps between my teeth." The knights despaired, whispers of doom passing among them. "It's over. There's no hope." But cutting through the suffocating fear, a defiant voice rang out. "And who decided our fate so soon?" It was Jiang Li. Having completed his breakthrough, he now stood, radiating newfound strength. His class had ascended to Black Iron, granting him an additional skill slot and the ability to dual cast. With calm confidence, he conjured the Bone Spear spell, launching lethal barges toward the demon. The demon lord raised its massive arm defensively, yet several spears pierced its flesh, black ichor dripping from fresh wounds. For a creature thought untouchable, this was shocking. Butler Fu, who had doubted the boy earlier, froze. "That spell, it's a genuine abyssal technique. Just who exactly is this Jiang Li?" Despite his astonishment, he knew victory required sacrifice. Raising his blade, Butler Fu rallied the others. "All mages, concentrate fire on the demon. Protect the young lady at all costs." Fiery explosions lit up the battlefield as coordinated fireball barges engulfed the demon in smoke and flame. In that deadly chaos, Butler Fu turned sharply to Jiang Li and entrusted him with the most vital task. "Take Lady Mo Qing to safety. On my honor as her protector, I leave her in your hands." His grizzled frame moved forward with unwavering resolve, sword gleaming. The truth of Butler Fu was revealed. This old servant was in fact a powerful, high-level hunter, prepared to stake his life in battle. The relentless barrage of magical fireballs raining down upon the monstrous demon only seemed to provoke it further. Its voice thundered like rolling thunder across the battlefield as it growled, mocking the hunters who dared resist. A swarm of insignificant ants. You dare challenge me? Seething with fury, the demon lord raised its grotesque claw, summoning torrents of energy before roaring its intent to annihilate the group. Its blazing breath coalesced into a massive energy beam aimed directly at Butler Fu, whom it had quickly identified as the leader of the resistance. But Butler Fu did not falter. With iron-like resolve, he infused his sword with condensed aura, the blade illuminating with a blinding radiance. Planting his feet firmly, he raised the weapon and met the attack head-on. Sparks and ripples of violent energy erupted at the collision point as Butler Fu's aura sword collided with the demon's destructive breath. The strain was nearly unbearable. The force shook his arms to the bone, but through sheer grit, he managed to withstand it. When the surge finally subsided, Butler Fu staggered backward, drenched in sweat, his breathing ragged. His body screamed in protest, but his spirit remained unbroken. Tightening his grip, he summoned an even greater surge of aura, the power surrounding his blade intensifying to a divine sharpness. If I cannot slay you outright, he thought grimly, leaping into the air with desperate determination, then I will at least buy the lady enough time. Channeling the last of his strength, he unleashed his most devastating technique, Sword of Judgment. With his weapon raised high, he plummeted straight toward the demon's skull in a blistering arc of light. Yet at the final moment, the demon lord contemptuously raised a giant hand, catching the radiant blade as though it were a mere stick. Its sinister laughter shook the air. Is this all you are capable of, human? With terrifying ease, the demon clenched its grip, pried the blade aside, and wrapped its clawed fist tightly around Butler Fu's neck. Choked and helpless, the elderly warrior kicked and struggled, his face turning pale. The demon taunted him, "Struggle as much as you like. It only makes your weakness more amusing." A moment later, it hurled Butler Fu into the ground with monstrous force, the earth beneath cracking from the impact. Watching this, Mo Qing's heart nearly stopped. Fear-stricken, she instinctively attempted to rush to Butler Fu's aid, but Jiang Li stepped in front of her, stopping her in her tracks. His eyes narrowed as he evaluated the situation calmly. The demon was already moving toward the fallen butler, its enormous hand lifting again, ready to squash the elder like an insect. All the other hunters, despite their numbers, hesitated. Some shouted frantically from the sidelines, "Master Fu, get out of there!" But in their hearts, despair had taken root. Butler Fu, battered and broken, lay unable to stand. His armor cracked, his grip on the sword shaky. He had no way to dodge or to defend himself anymore. Just as the demon raised its voice in cruel triumph, "Pathetic humans, always overestimating yourselves. Die like the vermin you are." Something glimmered in the distance. A massive ice spear, sharp and gleaming like frozen judgment, sliced through the air with a shrill howl. The demon lord reacted instinctively, dodging to avoid the deadly projectile. Yet even so, the spear clipped one of its wings, tearing a jagged wound across the bone and membrane. The demon howled in outrage, its wings dripping with black ichor. Butler Fu seized that fleeting chance. Despite his broken body, he gathered a final surge of will and slashed at the demon's exposed leg. The colossal monster stumbled, momentarily collapsing on one knee. Using this narrow opening, Butler Fu retreated, half limping, half dragging his sword. The demon lord's gaze shifted furiously toward the attacker, who dared wound it. And there, standing firmly with staff in hand, was Jiang Li. His eyes were sharp, his posture unyielding. "From here on, I'll be the one handling you," Jiang Li declared coldly. Drawing upon his magic, he aimed directly at the demon's head, issuing a command to his allies. "Focus on healing and tend to the wounded quickly. Leave this beast to me." Butler Fu, despite bleeding heavily, shouted in protest. Young man, this is not your fight. Your duty is to protect Our Lady, escort her to safety. Leave this creature to us. Jiang Li glanced at him and shook his head. That won't be necessary. I've discovered its weakness, and I can damage it. That left the old butler stunned. Not only had Jiang Li spoken with full confidence, but even his magic was behaving differently. While a mere black iron mage in name, he had managed to combine his spells in an unprecedented way. His ice spears were no longer ordinary. They pulsed with the eerie energy of bone magic fused into their structure. Impossible, Butler Fu muttered in disbelief. Emerged two powers to forge a completely new form of magic. Meanwhile, the demon lord roared with fresh fury, its massive frame shaking the ground. Wretched vermin, that wound on my wings, unforgivable. In a blur, the beast lunged at Jiang Li, its murderous claws ripping the air apart. But Jiang Li narrowly evaded, leaping aside with almost unnatural speed. Using the momentum, he vaulted behind the demon and unleashed a barrage of bone-infused ice spears directly at its back. Each spear struck with piercing force, two of them stabbing into the demon's wings. The colossal appendages shattered and fell uselessly to the ground, black blood spray splattering across the stone. Your wings, Jiang Li said coldly, fixing his gaze upon the beast, are your greatest weakness. Without them, you're nothing more than a grounded carcass. It was true. For demons, wings were more than tools for flight. They were reservoirs of magic power. Destroying them stripped the fiend of its true strength. The demon lord's eyes widened in shock. How do you know this? Unfazed, Jiang Li answered firmly. Because Humanity's Academy trains us to counter monsters like you. Abyssal demons are humanity's eternal enemies. We've studied all your weaknesses. He spoke boldly, though deep inside he was bluffing. The truth was harsher. The demon's true weak point lay hidden, as its heart could appear in random locations within its body. He had no certainty where it was. Still, fear and doubt were weapons too, and he wielded them with a sharp tongue. Watching this, Dark Mage Gui seethed with hatred. He shouted at Jiang Li, "Arrogant fool, you think such injuries mean anything to us? We are demons. Our regenerative capabilities are beyond your comprehension." But the demon lord was far less patient. Snarling with hunger, it seized Gui by the collar before the mage could even react. Your prattling bores me. If I am to recover, then I will do so here and now, it rumbled. Recognizing what the fiend intended, Gui's eyes bulged in terror. No, wait. Stop. My lord, forgive. His cries were silenced as the demon lord's jaws widened. With grotesque relish, it devoured its own summoner alive, Gui's screams echoing horribly until swallowed completely. Gasps of horror spread among the hunters. Mo Qing clutched her chest, stunned into silence, as the others froze in disbelief. The demon lord's form shifted instantly. Its body swelled, its muscles hardened, and fresh wings, larger and darker than before, sprouted from its back with a painful snap. A chilling system notification rang aloud for everyone present. Warning, Demon Lord has entered Phase 2. Threat level has escalated drastically. Immediate danger, extreme. The fiend's voice now carried even more menace as it bellowed. Humans, you have ignited my fury. I will erase you all. Opening its maw once more, it unleashed a far more devastating energy breath. The blast tore through the battlefield with cataclysmic force. Jiang Li's training and his maximized agility spell allowed him to narrowly dodge, his form flashing like a shadow across the ground. But dodging alone wasn't enough. His current armor spell lacked the resilience to withstand an attack of such terrifying magnitude. Just as he prepared for the worst, Jiang Li's body suddenly radiated with a golden aura. Multiple system prompts appeared before his eyes in rapid succession. Blessing received. Magic attack power increased by 100%. Blessing received. Magic attack power increased by 200%. Jiang Li blinked in surprise. Then he looked behind him. Emo, Qing, Vivi, and the knights were all pouring their mana into him, weaving a net of blessings and enhancements to empower him further. The notifications continued. Defense increased by 100%. Speed increased by 200%. Vitality and mana regenerating steadily. The combined might of their buffs flared within him like wildfire. But the demon lord had noticed. Its eyes narrowed, and it conjured a massive energy sphere in its claw. Annoying pests. I'll crush you all in one strike. The terrifying orb of destruction hurtled toward Mo Qing and the rest of the support casters. Realizing the impending catastrophe, Jiang Li's heart pounded. He sprinted at blinding speed, his system message updating once again. Blessing received. Speed increased by 300%. The surge pushed his body to its absolute limit. In the blink of an eye, he was before Mo Qing and the others, standing as their shield. Raising his hand, he invoked the light armor spell. With the blessings reinforcing him, his defense stat doubled, and simultaneously his shield ability soared to new heights. The energy orb detonated on impact. A cataclysmic explosion engulfed the battlefield, the shockwave shaking everything. Yet at the very center of the inferno, Jiang Li stood unyielding, his shimmering armor absorbing the brunt of the destruction. The demon lord had barely raised its head in triumph when its expression abruptly shifted. Startlingly, the solid ground beneath its colossal feet began to liquefy, transforming into a dense, viscous swamp. Confused, the beast roared and beat its newly formed wings, attempting to launch itself into the air. But to its shock, it remained stuck, completely bound by the restraining bog. "What is this sorcery?" the demon snarled. In truth, the trap was crafted by Jiang Li. It was a devastating fusion technique, a combined spell of paralysis and action restriction. The clever mage had conjured the swamp to immobilize his monstrous foe, binding its body and cutting off its mobility at the crucial moment. Thanks to the light armor spell he had cast earlier, Jiang Li's allies remained safely shielded from the earlier blast, giving them time to continuously channel their blessings into him. Encouraged by their unwavering support, Jiang Li prepared his next strike. Lightning began to flicker across his staff as he directed it into the swamp below. The union of waterlogged terrain with electric magic birthed an entirely new spell, Thunderstorm. The swamp surged with blinding flashes of electricity as sharp thunderbolts rained down on the immobilized demon. The monster howled in pain, its massive frame spasming violently as arcs of current tore through its flesh, leaving searing burns scattered across its body. The shock was so great that the demon's movements grew sluggish, its immense power temporarily suppressed. Seeing the moment to strike, Butler Fu rallied the group. Those possessing enhancement items, now is the time. Use every enhancement spell you have. Bestow them upon Jiang Li. He is our last hope. The hunters obeyed instantly. One after another, layers upon layers of buffs surged into Jiang Li, his aura swelling like a blazing sun. His magical attack stat skyrocketed 600%, 700%, then 800%. Each system notification flashed vividly before his eyes. The demon lord, infuriated by Jiang Li's audacity to approach despite its might, began charging yet another destructive energy breath. "Foolish boy, you dare face me head-on? You will perish." But Jiang Li's confidence did not waver. With magic power, now amplified nearly beyond reason, he unleashed his next spell, Bone Arrow. The sharpened projectile ripped through the air, colliding directly with the demon lord's energy breath. To the astonishment of all, the bone arrow not only pierced through the demonic blast, but also surged forward straight toward its skull. The demon scoffed despite the wound. "Petty tricks," it mocked, raising its clawed hand to shield its face. Yet this, too, had been foreseen by Jiang Li. His arrow shattered into dozens of fragments mid-flight, breaking apart into a swarm of razor-sharp shards. They embedded themselves deeply into the demon's hands and arms. With a sly smile, Jiang Li taunted, "You protect your head so diligently. Tell me, is there something especially precious hidden there?" The monster sneered arrogantly. "What does it matter? You will die here regardless." But before it could act further, the embedded bone fragments ignited, glowing crimson. In an instant, the shards detonated. Boom! The demon lord roared as flames engulfed its arms. This wasn't a mere trick. It was Jiang Li's self-developed explosive bone spear, a deadly fusion technique blending bone spear and fireball. The result was devastating. Searing flames and concussive force blinded the demon at point-blank range. Not missing a heartbeat, Jiang Li summoned a barrage of ice arrows, launching them directly at the target. Though the demon shrieked piercingly as the arrows stabbed into its flesh, the battle was not finished. Amidst smoke and flame, ghastly laughter echoed. The demon staggered forward, its eyes burning. "Ha ha! Did you truly believe that pitiful display marked the end? That last strike was your only chance." But suddenly, its laughter faltered. Its gaze fell upon its own mangled arms, where the wounds inflicted by the explosive bone spears stubbornly refused to regenerate. Panic flashed briefly across its monstrous features. What is this? Why do I not heal? Human, what have you done to me?" Jiang Li responded calmly, almost playfully. "Nothing extraordinary. Just a simple slowing curse woven into those fragments." The demon roared in outrage. "Despicable insect! Do you truly think these childish tricks can harm me?" But Jiang Li only smirked, raising his hand. His fingers snapped, and with a single command all around him, dozens of glowing ice arrows prepared in advance, dove-like hawks upon their prey. The sky itself seemed to collapse into a rain of frozen shards. Each arrow pierced ruthlessly into the demon's colossal body, riddling it with gaping wounds until its entire form was shredded. Its final roar shook the dungeon's walls, echoing in despair, then gradually faded as its hulking body crumbled into dust and ash. The nightmare was at last vanquished. For a breathless silence, the battlefield was still. Then came the triumphant ding of the system notification. Level up. Jiang Li has ascended 5 levels, reaching level 25. Cheers erupted as relief fell over the survivors. Their grinding dread lifted, replaced with victory's sweet release. All the hunters present leveled up by 2 ranks as well. Butler Fu, watching from the sidelines with bloodied clothes, gazed at Jiang Li in awe. If this young man holds such power now, then in the future he will surely ascend to the peak of this world. We must ensure our bond with him remains strong. Jiang Li's feat had also surprised his peers. Theoretically, advancing to Black Iron rank did not automatically allow the simultaneous casting of dual spells. Yet somehow, Jiang Li had accomplished it flawlessly. Some began whispering if it was perhaps due to his unique trait of mastering each spell to its maximum level, granting him hidden abilities. Though most celebrated him, not all were pleased. A few of Mo Qing's bodyguards grumbled with envy. If all those blessings had been poured into us instead, and we weren't injured, we too could have felled the demon. But Mo Qing silenced them swiftly, rebuking, "Nonsense. Do not undervalue Jiang Li's strength. Without his leadership, we would not be standing here." Vivi stepped forward, agreeing solemnly. "This victory belongs to him. We owe him deeply." Afterward, Jiang Li turned to Vivi curiously. "What are your plans once this instance is over?" She hesitated before replying, a little shame in her tone. I feel my strength is lacking. If I continue as I am, I'll only hold you back. I want to train in lower-level areas for now. Once I've grown stronger, then perhaps we can raid instances together." Her honesty touched him. Mo Qing, cheeks faintly red, spoke softly. "Next time, I'd also like to be by your side." Jiang Li, he blinked in surprise. "You would accompany me?" Before she could clarify, Butler Fu interjected smoothly. "What Our Lady means is that she wishes to extend an invitation. She hopes that when the time allows, you will grace her family mansion with your presence." Jiang Li scratched his cheek awkwardly, then smiled. If you insist so warmly, I shall certainly attend. Seeing the young man relax again, Butler Fu gestured toward the battlefield strewn with shimmering loot. Please, claim the spoils. The final blow and the victory were yours. These treasures rightfully belong to you alone. Obliging, Jiang Li examined the dropped items. His eyes widened as he retrieved several gleaming artifacts. Shadow Fong's staff, a silver-quality weapon that pulsed with dark energy. Demon's Cloak, of golden quality, endowed with the rare ability Demon's Eye, granting detection of stealth units below silver rank. The staff increased his focus while the cloak fortified his awareness. He grinned. With this, I won't have to fear ambushes again. But treasure yet greater remained. The first layer Abyss Pass, special grade, a token that permitted entry into the first layer of the Abyss, a domain requiring the strength of silver professionals to endure. An Abyss Stone, golden grade, a rare gemstone that could be embedded into equipment, empowering it with abyssal properties while significantly increasing the chance of upgrading said gear to gold tier. Jiang Li frowned at the gemstone, unfamiliar with its full properties, but Butler Fu, upon seeing it, very nearly dropped his sword from shock. Teach this, he stammered, his eyes wide. This stone is not mere treasure. It is one of the rarest of all finds. Normal gemstones may refine common gear into something extraordinary. But this alone can elevate equipment directly into gold rank. A blacksmith's dream come true. He explained patiently. Know this well, Jiang Li. Just as warriors fight to protect humanity, there are professions dedicated entirely to its prosperity. Chefs, alchemists, blacksmiths. Though they do not fight, they are the beating heart of our logistics. Their craft is invaluable. He then added, in Golden City, go to the Golden Dragon Treasure Pavilion. The steward there, Lord Lin, is said to know the greatest blacksmith available. If anyone can shape this stone into destiny, it will be him. Jiang Li bowed slightly. Thank you. That is fortunate. I was headed to the pavilion already. Your insight will be of great use. Gathering his spoils and bidding farewell, Jiang Li turned to Mo Qing with a light smile. Until next time. With that, he disappeared into the distance, carrying newfound strength and treasures beyond imagining.